So in this problem, it tells you it's a parallelogram and asks you which property will allow you to solve for x. So the first thing you have to realize is they're giving you angle measures because you've got degrees here, you've got degrees here. So you have to think about all the properties that have to do with angles. So this has to do with sides, this has to do with sides, this has to do with angles, and this has to do with angles. So the first two options are already out. Now you have to think about what kind of angles they're giving to you and which property is actually for a parallelogram. So because angle D and angle B are diagonal from each other, these are considered opposite angles. They are not adjacent because adjacent angles would be next to each other. That would be like angle A and angle D, or angle D and angle C. So we're not talking about adjacent or consecutive angles in this problem. We are talking about opposite angles. So you only have two options now when you're thinking opposite. It's either both pairs of opposite angles are congruent and diagonals bisect the opposite angles. Now, if you go back to your property sheet, this bottom one is a property for a rhombus, not a specific property for a parallelogram. So you cannot assume this to be true for this parallelogram because you don't know if it's a rhombus or not. So it ends up being both pairs of opposite sides are congruent. If you were to try to solve for x, you would just set these two things equal to each other and then solve for x that way.